Okay. Are we live? Okay, great. All right, I'm going to call the Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 regular council meeting to order and begin with a land acknowledgement that the city of Fort Saskatchewan is located on Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta, District 11. We recognize that we stand upon the land that carries the footsteps of many Indigenous peoples, including the Nihilwak, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Métis. The city honors the First Peoples of this land and is committed to fostering reconciliation through relationship building, knowledge gathering, and education. All right, so the first item that we have, I'll take a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'll make a motion that council approves the July 8th regular council meeting minutes as presented and circulated.
Thank you. I'm going to close the motion. Please cast your vote.
Sorry, Your Worship. Was the intent to adopt the agenda? I think Councillor Abatoye may have read the wrong motion.
Oh, which one? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so let's do over.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, apologies for that. I'll make a motion that the agenda of August 12th, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. That's a new one, though. Yeah.
Yeah, we started that in our last procedural bylaw that we were now adopting it. Okay. Oh. She hasn't been admitted? Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you, and that is carried. All right, thank you. Any delegations? Anybody wishing to speak to the borrowing bylaw or the subdivision and development bylaw? I think everybody's accounted for here, so we will move on with, there is no consent agenda. So now I'll ask for approval of the minutes of July 8th, 2025. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that council approve the minutes of the July 8th, 2025 regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are there any errors or omissions? Not seeing or hearing any. I will close the motion. Please cast your vote. And that is carried. All right, so we will move on to the borrowing bylaw for design and construction of the aquatics facility for second and third reading. Paul Osoids and Shannon, if you, sorry, really good with last names. Are you having any luck getting her in? Just give us a second. Okay, so with that, let's see, borrowing bylaw. Welcome.
Thank you.
How do you say your last name?
Olusanya.
Oyasoy?
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
It's Olu, then there is Sanya part of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Paul Olusanya, Senior Accountant, Community and Protective Services. And with me is Shannon Handruko, Manager, Budgeting and Planning. I'm here to present the information regarding the borrowing bylaw 616-25 for the purpose of construction of new aquatic facilities. This bylaw received first reading on July 8, 2025, The bylaw was advertised and no petition was received. The borrowing bylaw is in the amount to not exceed 66.6 million, as per the recently approved amendment to the aquatic planning and construction budget. The estimated cost of the debt servicing includes both principal and interest. For example, at an interest rate of 4.7%, the debt servicing is approximately 4.2 million annually over 30 years term. The actual borrowing term and interest will be determined upon application to financial institution and will be done in accordance with the debt management policy. Therefore, we recommend that Council give second and third readings to Bylaw 616-25 to incur debt for the construction of new aquatic facilities in the amount not exceeding 66.6 million. Thank you, and I will welcome questions and comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'll open it up for any clarifying questions first. Councillor Nguyen.
Sorry. Yeah, first question I have is what the terms of the loan are, the debenture that we are seeking. So my own experience, it might be different with a debenture of this size. You can obtain a loan that's, I believe, titled open-ended with ability to pay off principal without penalty. So what, I guess, can you just comment on what our preferential debenture terms would look like from either institutions that have been outlined in the report?
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Noye. So we are going to look at different options. We look at the provincial government. We also look at the financial institution. We look at the flexibility of their terms, how we can pay, if we want to pay off early, what is the time, what is the penalty. So we are going to consider all these options and choose the best one.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mayor. So we are going to consider different options. We look at the provincial borrowing. We also look at the financial institution. So we look at the terms, the penalty for early payments. So we choose the best option out of all the options that we are going to see.
Right, and I think that's what it mentions in the report. So, is our business plan, business case where we are actively pursuing a certain type of debenture with terms that are favorable to the city of Fort Saskatchewan. And I do ask that because if the city decides to allocate a large tranche of money towards the loan, then what are the terms of the loan that we are pursuing, or are you saying that can't be outlined as of yet?
Yeah, so the term we'll be pursuing the one that is more flexible, that when we have, like say, the bulk payment, we can easily make that payment, and so that's the kind of the loan that we'll be looking at.
Okay, and then when will we see the terms of the loan after these readings, assuming that they pass?
So after the borrowing bylaw is passed, then we approach financial institution, we get those options. Within weeks and months, we get all the options and we choose the best one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Yes, thank you and good morning. I'm going to ask you again, get the mic right in front of you, please. I have trouble hearing you if you're not into the mic. Thank you. I don't understand why the borrowing bylaw wouldn't state the negotiations that have already taken place and the terms that have been decided in advance rather than coming at this stage. I feel like I'm approving something that I don't know what I'm approving. And it makes me uncomfortable. So,
through your worship to Councillor Kelly, I will start. Maybe Shannon can also help. So we are using the provincial borrowing as the standard, and that is why we put the 4.7% as the interest rate and the term as 30 years. So the other option is to look at financial institution and see if we can get something better. But the main yardstick is the provincial borrowing, which is at 4.7% that we put in the report.
Again, I'm sorry, but you got to get that right in front of your mouth, please. I'm really having trouble. Thank you.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is we are using the 4.7%, which is the provincial interest rate, as the standard. And we also look at other financial institutions if we see something better. But for now, the 4.7% that we put in the report is what's the term from the province.
I thought you were going to weigh in. I was waiting.
Oh, I can add. We have to pass the 3 readings of the borrowing bylaw before we can do any of the work on looking at which option is better for us before we can go to the province. Like, we know the information from the province because it's posted, but we need the borrowing bylaw to go to the financial institutions.
Okay.
What we know from the financial institutions, just high level information that we got from them, is we can customize borrowing. They're very flexible. You can customize. They have many, many clients that customize differently for different reasons. So we're going to engage in those discussions after the borrowing bylaw is passed, gather all the information and see what fits best for the city.
And once you've made your decision, or at least narrowed it down to 2 or 3 options, will you be back in front of council before you sign the papers?
If that's the wish of council.
Do you need a motion for that?
Mr. Fleming?
Your worship, it's that would be outside of our standard practice, but yeah, motion would be good if council directs that. We would be fine to come back.
And I'll explain why. One of the boards I sit on is borrowing actually more money. We had a presentation from a commercial lender that tried to convince the board that their rate was more favorable than the Alberta government rate. The problem is that they're not comparing apples to apples. The financial institution rate was essentially only fixed for 5 years, where the province of Alberta, as I understand it, is fixed for the entire duration of the loan. And there's significant risk profiles that are different between those 2 options. It's not that I don't trust you people, but I'd really like to know what we're getting into before we actually get into it. So Mercatcher, when the questions are over and we get into this, I'm going to put a motion forward.
Okay, I think that would be after the 2 motions are dealt with first, and then we would do it as germane.
Just don't forget me, please. Yep, thank you.
Forget you. Okay. Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So I have 2 questions. My first question is, so we're going to get this loan for 30 years. Have we looked at the anticipated property tax impact as a result of this borrowing? I know that you have indicated that's equal to be an estimate of $4.185 million. So is the anticipated as that's going to be the payments for over 30 years? Are you considering a fixed versus variable rate? I guess that will come after the borrowing bylaw, like you said. But I guess my main question is, if we're paying $4.185 million, assuming, is that what we're going to pay for the rest of the 30-year life cycle, or that's going to change as interest rates changes?
Through your worship to Councillor Abatoye, so this example was done with a fixed rate.
Right. Okay.
So the 4.2 million is for 30 years. Thank you.
Okay, so that will continue for the life cycle of the debenture.
Yes.
If we choose to go with the province,
Right.
If we choose to go with a financial institution, there's various different ways we can be doing it. So we have to do the investigative work.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My second question is just about the $4.1 million by Dow. How do we? Because there is a foreign exchange risk there. Do we have a plan to hedge against foreign exchange risk? How are we going to handle that? Because I guess it will make sense to change the funds when you're able to get the highest rate, right? So what's the plan for that?
To answer your question, not to my knowledge that there's been any discussion about hedging. We've received the first installment with a favorable exchange rate, but the future, I'm not able to answer that question unless somebody else can.
Just as a follow-up to that, is that so you received a favorable exchange rate. You received it in US dollars, but you're the ones that change it to Canadian dollars. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you able to disclose how much was received because it wasn't in the package?
Oh, off the top of my head, I don't have that readily available.
Okay, and that can be disclosed later. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Harris?
Question to Mr. Fleming. So, Mr. Fleming, this is not out of the norm. This is standard operating procedure for the passage of a debenture bylaw for a major capital project. Is that correct?
Through your worship, the passing of 3 readings of the borrowing bylaw is standard procedure.
Right, and it's fairly typical for municipalities to look for the best favorable rate. I think typically in the past, the Alberta Municipal Finance Corporation or its successor, whatever it is, ultimately offered, I guess, what I would consider to be the most conservative rate. Is that fair?
Yeah, through your worship, for quite a number of years, the Alberta Municipal Finance Corp used to offer a discounted interest rate, and I'd say municipalities have borrowed almost exclusively from the Municipal Finance Corporation. It's only been in the last, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 years, where they actually went up to basically a market sort of interest rate. That's where municipalities have started to look around at other alternatives for financing. So from that perspective, this is a little bit new, us shopping around for the best deal for financing.
And do you have any concerns about this process?
Through your worship, I do understand, like, the way I look at this is most likely the default will be that we borrow from Alberta Municipal Financing Corporation. It's the steadiest. Like Councillor Kelly mentioned, you get an interest rate, you get it for 30 years. But I do think it's in our best interest to see if there's something better out there. I think he's right. There are different risk profiles that you can get with different borrowing options, and is administration's risk tolerance the same as council's? That could be the question. So.
Yeah, I guess I'm not so concerned about that because I think we've all got a very conservative risk profile. So
yeah, I don't think I have concerns to answer your question, but I do see how there are different choices that could be made.
Yeah. So. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That appears to be all the questions. So with that, what is the wish of council? Councillor Nguyen.
So I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw C-1625, borrowing bylaw for aquatics facilities project construction, a bylaw that authorizes the city to borrow up to $66,600,000 for the purpose of constructing the new aquatics facility project. Well, I got sticker shock there for a second, minced my words. For the purpose of constructing the new aquatic facilities project.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion?
I think we've asked some good questions. It's fairly clear. It's a simple process. And I'm happy to support this as we're getting closer to the stage of construction commencement and funding the aquatics facility.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blizzard, questions or debate?
Or just a statement?
Yeah, or a statement.
I'll support this motion. I think it is necessary before we can move forward with this. So it's vital that we approve it, and I look forward to seeing a pool in a few years.
Thank you. Councillor Abatoye.
Thank you. I believe that's I obviously support the motion. I think it's an investment in our community's quality of life and health. And it's a long-term asset that would obviously benefit all demographics from young children to seniors. And I know that due process has been followed, right? We've done public notice, and we got nobody responded objecting to the bylaws. So I think it just makes sense. And I think really voting today is really voting for today's Fort Saskatchewan and the future of Fort Saskatchewan. So I definitely support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. On the subject of the pool, I have traditionally been not in favor. I am going to change my process or my mind for this particular one. I will vote in favor of the borrowing bylaw. I do have sticker shock at $72 million, but the $72 million cost to construct the pool is by far and away the smallest portion of the $500 million of present value that we have for the pool. And the bulk of the cost over the next 40 years for the pool will arise from the process that administration uses to actually operate the pool. And I eagerly await our 2-year delayed, or at least 1 year delayed, fees and charges revisions from Rec Services. I would like to see what they anticipate rates will be for a brand new $72 million facility with all of the bells and whistles. So I'll support the borrowing because I'm not against the pool. I do have a problem with a $500 million cost. I think that's absolutely exorbitant. But that does come down to an administration responsibility. So I'll leave it at that, and let's move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris?
I'll support the motion. I would remind council and the public that I was fundamentally against spending this kind of money at this point in time to build a pool. Other than what I was proposing, and no members of council saw fit to agree with me, but I saw putting fundamentally less money into Harbor Pool, totally redoing that so that we had a good aquatic facility, such that when our population was around 45,000 or so, we could then come back and do this, and then we'd have 2 aquatic facilities in a community of 45,000, 50,000. That was my vision for the pool. Until we went out and we asked the population the residents in the community through the census what they felt and what they were prepared to pay for. And I believe the response was 78% in support of building the pool now. I think the amount that we asked the public was somewhat less than what we're currently looking at right now. And so the sticker shock issue is something that's just a fundamental reality that we're dealing with today in any municipal infrastructure. But I will support the pool on that basis. If we hadn't gotten a response from the public, then I would have been against it because I think it's an exorbitant amount to pay for the pool. But the public has said categorically that they're prepared to support it, and they recognize the cost that it was going to be. And so I'll support it on that basis, and as moving forward, I look to our administration to continue their design and our tendering process and our construction process to find the most economical way to deliver this project for the future of our community. Because we are a growing community, and I think an investment of this type is definitely prudent from that standpoint. So I'll support it on that basis.
Okay, thank you very much. That looks like all of the discussion and debate. Councillor Nguyen, anything on close?
Yeah, I'd just like to pose one question to administration, which is related to finance. So that if this becomes funded, let's say before New Year 2026, and this is an information request, can council be given a project phasing timeline for what the 3 parties involved are predicting to have happen time-wise from start to completion post-funding?
Mr. Fleming?
Sorry, through your worship. So is the question, can we provide council with like a project timeline?
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. Obviously something we're not going to hold you to, but just to kind of get an idea when next council has been asked when's the pool going to be done, right?
Yeah, through your worship, we can provide a briefing note on an updated, our best projection of a timeline.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And I don't have anything further on close.
Okay, thank you. The motion for second reading is now closed. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. You may proceed with third. Go ahead.
So I'll move that council give third reading to bylaw C16-25, borrowing bylaw for aquatics facilities project construction, a bylaw that authorizes the city to borrow up to $66,600,000 for the purpose of constructing the new aquatic facilities project.
Okay, thank you. Do you wish to speak to it?
No further comments.
Thank you. It's open for discussion and debate. I'm just going to make a comment. You know, I've heard the word sticker shock, but I think when we look around Canada or even in this region, there's sticker shock when it comes to building a new home these days. I know I've heard from people that say, oh, if we had built this when the DCC was built, it wouldn't have cost, you know, nearly as much. You know, so when, you know, we talk about sticker shock, the cost is continuously going up. I mean, we even heard that on the fire hall. If we continue waiting, it's going to go up so many million per year as well. So, you know, yeah, it's a sad reality, but it's what we live with at this point in time. And council did make a decision to go with the ultimate pool. The majority of council did. So, you know, it's just a reality of what's happening out in the world right now. So that's just my comment that I want to make. I mean, you look at housing right now, you can barely buy a house for $500,000. A lot of them are running closer to $750,000 and a lot are in the $1 million. So it's, yeah, it's just the reality of life right now. Councillor Kelly?
Thank you. Mayor Katcher, I would agree in part with your comments. It's a reality of life that something will always cost more dollars in the future than they cost today. That's a simple function of inflation, but you always have to remember that there's two sides to that equation. The dollars that you are spending in the future also have a lower value. So the fact that there's more dollars doesn't mean that it's actually costing more. And that was a problem with the comments in the pool proposal that was brought forward by the city administration a few months back. You can't look at just one side of it without looking at the inflation on the other side. The sticker shock, Mr. Fleming, refresh my memory, please, or either one of you, I don't care. We had in our 10-year capital plan last December how much for a new pool? I think it was $48 million, but that's my recollection.
Through your worship, that sounds correct to me, but I'd have to go back and look. Or do you remember? Huh? 49. You were close.
Yeah. 49, I was close. So in December, we thought 49. We approved 72. That's not just because things cost more. It's because we determined we would add a whole bunch of features to the pool that may or may not be relevant to the long-term success of the pool. Nonetheless, 72 million versus 49, and I suspect that the 72 million won't be the final number. So we'll see what happens and take it from there. But sticker shock, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen, anything on close? Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to summarize my perspective on this, we've obviously been through a lengthy process that spans past the term of this council, and I believe this pool, with the amenities that have been chosen, with the concept and design that have been chosen, will certainly provide something where every citizen in Fort Saskatchewan can find enjoyment, and certainly this does come at a cost. So I'm quite pleased with going ahead. You know, this is a very large sum of money, and this is a new recreation amenity that's going to serve Fort Saskatchewan for countless years to come.
Okay, Thank you. The motion is now closed on third reading. Please cast your vote. And that is carried unanimously. Councillor Kelly, you wish to put on, thank you. You wish to put on a subsequent motion?
Yeah, I do. Andrew, are you ready to start cobbling something together for me, please? Let me give you my initial thought. I move that administration be instructed to bring back to council the findings of their research and their decision for the best borrowing opportunity for this $66.6 million debenture or loan.
So you're only asking for an information item?
Well, listen, if it's significantly changed, there'll be a motion at that time to move that thing in front of council. So I'll leave it up to administration, Mayor Catcher. I expect it's going to come back with the province of Alberta. But if it doesn't, I would like to see it. And contrary, perhaps, I'm not sure I understood Councillor Harris's comments completely, but it's council that is asked to approve this borrowing bylaw. And because I'm tasked with voting on this, I would like to know at the end of the day what I actually approved. And if it was a $2 million or a $5 million or a $10 million loan, I wouldn't have the same concerns. But at 66.6 million, that's the biggest loan that I have been asked to approve in my 8 years on council. It's very significant in terms of dollar value and the balance sheet of the city of Fort Saskatchewan, and the potential risk profile is completely different from something that's much smaller. So I do think that council needs to be updated. I suspect it'll be what you already suggested, Mr. Fleming, but I'd like to know, and I think that's a reasonable request.
So I'm just wondering, on the motion, it says to discuss. I'm wondering if it should be to return to council to provide an update. And because
at this stage, I'm good with that. I'll take that as a friendly or accept wording like that. Yes. Again, I repeat, if there's significant changes to the normal course of action where we would borrow on a fixed rate over a 30-year period from the province of Alberta, if there's significant changes, there very well might be a motion coming from or deriving from that information. But let's leave that to get the update.
Okay, thank you. So is that, did you want to read that in? Just a second.
I don't know. Do we have one?
Yeah, it was on the screen.
I don't see it. Oh, down there, and I can't. Okay, direct. Update on the financing options chosen. I don't want an update on the options. I want to know what your final decision is. Does that make sense, Mr. Fleming?
Yeah, through your worship. Chosen is kind of past tense, though. That's why I left it the way I did. And I didn't provide a timeline because it's...
Okay, then put in recommended.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Take out chosen
Options
and put in recommended
for the debenture. Yeah. And then I didn't put in a timeline because it's, I mean, ultimately we were required to do this before we draw. So I left it a little bit open in terms of.
That's fine. So I think in my mind this would be, you'd come to council just before you sign on the paper so that council would know what's going on.
Which would probably be this fall or early in the new year?
You're going to tell me it's about October 20th, right?
Do you know about when? So early in the new year, probably. Yeah, so we'll probably start to draw on it. It'll either be later this year or early in the new year.
So we do have time, even with the election, to have council review this.
Yeah, I don't think the election will have any bearing. This will happen after that.
That's my point. Yeah. You don't need to make a decision in the month of October. That's what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you want to read that in?
Oh, sorry, of course. I was waiting for you to call the vote. I move that Council direct administration to return to Council to provide an update on the financing options recommended for the debenture for the aquatics facility approved in bylaws C-1625. And Mayor Katcher, I don't think I need to add anything. My intent and my comments have already been made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's open for discussion and debate. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you. I will be supporting this motion. I think council should not overlook or due diligence and furthermore being able to scrutinize the terms of a debenture and ensure that we as public representatives have transparent information for both our own sake and to be able to communicate to residents of Fort Saskatchewan, which inevitably will be requested at some point in time in the very near future. So I fully support this motion. Thank you, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Councillor Blizzard.
Yeah, I have no problem with this motion as long as it doesn't change the fact that we will be getting the pool with so many people wanting one. And it will be interesting, I think, to see if there's anything in the financial institutions that's better than what the government gives us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Batoye.
Thank you. I actually won't be supporting this motion. And I won't be supporting the motion because I believe that due process has been done. We have done first reading. We have gone to the public and asked for done a public notice. We got no objections. I believe that administration is the experts. I believe that they will choose the most conservative system or process or structure that will ensure that the property tax impact on our citizens will be as minimal as possible. I trust that they will do that. So I don't really see the need for this. And especially the fact that this council can make this decision. It's going to be on another council, and we don't know how that's going to transition. So I fear that this could change the desire of this community, which we heard loud and clear. 78% of our residents said they want a pool. And I do not doubt the capacity or capability of our administration to ensure that there's due diligence done and that the right option is chosen for this debenture. So I want to be supporting the motion. We have a borrowing bylaw that administration has to adhere to. And I honestly trust that they will do that. So because of that, I wouldn't support this motion because I just see so much risk. If it was this council that was going to make the decision on this, I'm fine because we get it. But the next council, we do not know what that's going to look like. I would rather err on the side of caution. And honestly, that's not even erring because, again, I trust administration can make the right decision for our community. So I want to be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris.
I was sitting here pondering until Councillor Abatoye made her comments, and I tend to agree with her. You're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. The process to do it is going to take place. We're going to borrow the money. That's the way it is. We're likely, as Councillor Kelly said, we're likely to end up with the Alberta Municipal Financing Corporation as the agent that will disperse the funds for the project. I don't think council could do anything if they come back and say, oh, we decide to go here. I see it as a non-entity. So we're just spinning our wheels, wasting time. I don't see it adds any value to the overall outcome going forward. So I agree with Councillor Abatoye. I won't support it either. And I'm not against reporting back. And I would strongly suggest that administration continue to keep council in the loop as they normally would. I don't see that they would be hiding anything behind the skirt. So as far as I'm concerned, I see this as an unnecessary process.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Macon.
Thank you and good morning. I will be supporting the motion today. I think it's simply an information request. As has been said, I don't think that there would be much we could change, but if there are circumstances or rates that are different than what we should have been expecting, then I think council ought to know about that so that we can have that information when we go out into the community. So I will support the motion. Thank you.
I did not understand that, Mark. Sorry.
She's supporting it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm next on the speaking order. I'm not going to support it. I do agree that, you know, we can get a briefing note, but I don't think having to come back with a formal report to council with what administration is choosing. It's the recommended that worries me on this motion with the options recommended, because we're not going to come back and approve the option that is recommended. So I struggle with that, because absolutely, so they come back and say, well, we're going to choose this place at this amount, and council says, well, no, I think you should choose this one. We have now gotten into administrative function, and that's not our role as a council. I think it's important for us to maybe receive a briefing note on where it has actually occurred or taken place. But once we cross the line of doing administration's job, then we're no longer doing our elected jobs. So I'm not going to support it based on it saying bringing back the options for recommended. So I'm just really struggling with that one. Round two, Councillor Blizzard.
So despite what it says, which it actually does say options recommended, it sounds to me like council would need to then approve it for it to actually happen. I understood it more to be an information, that we're getting the information. So is the wording wrong? Does it need a correction on there? Because the way even that you explained it was more to get the final what's happening.
Yeah, you're next anyway. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
But I'd like to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Then bringing forth their recommendation. It doesn't say in there to be approved by council. It says they're bringing forth and explaining their recommendation. Now, I'm content to change the wording any way that it takes to make you comfortable, but there's no requirement in there, as I read it, that they're seeking approval of council. They're just explaining their recommendations. And like I said, if you're uncomfortable with the wording, Councillor Blizzard, I am more than prepared to take a friendly on it to make you comfortable. But the intent is to update council in a formal manner. This isn't the negotiation of the loan is in fact absolutely an administrative function. Undertaking a different risk profile for a significant debt amount, and when I say different, I mean a different risk profile than what council has seen historically, and that's already been explained by Mr. Fleming, is a council prerogative. Council is charged with managing, overseeing administration, and ensuring that administration, in their enthusiasm, I'm not saying they will, but in their enthusiasm, does not take on a risk profile that makes council uncomfortable. And it is our job to look after the long term. Not our job to negotiate, our job to look after the long term. In fact, this is no different than anything else we do on council. Administration brings forward a proposal, and it might be worth a vote, it might not be worth a vote, but administration explains to council, and sometimes council goes yay or nay. That's the process. And the fact that it's happening on a debt for the first time ever, well, this is the first time ever that we're talking to or potentially talking to financial institutions, and I've sat through one of those already within the last 2 months on a loan that was larger than this amount. And the financial institution brought in 4 experts and spent an hour and a half trying to convince the board that their approach was better. It's not, because they're not comparing apples to apples, but that's the board's role, okay? Or in that case, and then in this case, the council's role. And it's not this motion is not intended in any way, shape, or form to suggest that I know better than administration. What it does suggest is that council is elected to fulfill a function, and the function, among many things, is the preservation, the long-term preservation of the assets of the city of Fort Saskatchewan. And what we signed for long-term debt and the terms are part of that. It's that simple. So I think it's straightforward business. I can't imagine why there would be a problem with this. We do it on a daily basis. In fact, that is our job. So I'll leave it at that, and I probably don't need to close, Mayor Badger.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess the only thing is that word recommended means that it's coming to council for approval, which I don't, that kind of wasn't what it sounded like. So I wonder if we can just remove the word recommended on the financing options for the debenture, or not even have financing options on the financing for the debenture. Options and recommended really don't need to be in there. Yeah. To provide an update on the financing for the debenture. Then it's coming for an update, so.
Okay.
I guess your call.
Okay, I've got, you can think about it. I've got Councillor Nguyen next. Are you done? Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen.
So clarification, perhaps question for administration on the interpretation of this. What will council see? I know the words briefing note have been mentioned, and recommendations is, I think, in contention for the fact that historically we, and practice is to provide council with recommendations. And I don't think that's the intent of this. This isn't going to be coming to council for a decision. Correct. It's just going to be the update. So I'm trying to give some assistance on clarifying the interpretation of the motion.
So through your worship, what I interpret from that is that administration will bring forward an information report saying we went out and did the work, and of these maybe one or two or three options that we had that were reasonable, this is the option that administration is intending to go with.
And then following that, unless a member of council makes a notice of motion to alter the recommended course of action, which is an administrative procedure, then this is just providing information to council. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that was my assumption of the intent of the motion, was that administration will provide information on what we found and the direction that we're going. So yes, council could weigh in for and pass a motion to do something different than what we're proposing, but we're not coming forward to council asking for permission to do something.
And that would have to be a separate notice of motion entity aside from the request that's being made in this notice of motion.
Well, it would probably be germane at the time.
Germane. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I'm next in the speaking order. You're on round 3. And that is the reason that I will not support this, because we are giving authority to borrow the money already. We've given the authority to do that. I think if council is going to weigh in on what the actual choice is going to be, we've just crossed the line. I honestly believe that, and it's going to further delay everything that we do. So based on what the intent was, and I've heard now twice, well, it leaves it open for a motion to come forward to change it or to choose something different. I absolutely cannot support it on that basis now. Councillor Blizzard, round 3.
Yeah, question for our admin. So if this doesn't pass, do we still get the info of what happened?
This was supposed to be a quick and easy meeting today, council. Through your worship, if that's an alternative, if members of council desire that, I wouldn't have a problem. We could do a briefing note at that time as well, just saying here's here's what we found and where we're going. It could be essentially the same thing, but not in front of council, like not in a council meeting.
Thank you.
That would be acceptable as well for administration.
You're good? Okay, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Kelly. You can make your final comments and anything else, and nobody else is on the list.
To me, this seems so blatantly obvious that I'm absolutely surprised that it took 20 minutes of discussion. This isn't doing administration's job. This is doing council's job. And the reason this is necessary this time is that administration has indicated that there are different options open to them. And each of those different options will have different risk profiles. And I, as a councillor, would like to know what those risk profiles are. And I would like the ability to know that before the city is committed to a particular course of action. That's it. I just want to know. If, in fact, I or any other councillor at that time has strong concerns with the course of action chosen by administration, and quite frankly, I don't know why we would, but if, in fact, we do, we have the opportunity at that time to through resolution, try to effect a change. That is council's job, straight and simple. And I'll leave it at that. I think the wording is fine. Mr. Fleming and I certainly agree on what the intent of this motion is. And let's call the question, Mayor Catcher.
Okay, thank you. The motion is now closed. Please cast your vote. The motion is defeated, 3-4. Thank you very much. But yeah, I would suggest that administration does a great job with their briefing notes, and the council of the day will probably receive one. So, all right. Okay, we will move on to there is nobody here to thank. So we will move on to item 6.2, amending subdivision and development appeal board bylaw 31-8 for 3 readings.
Good morning, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Irina Kennedy, and I'm a Senior Legislative Officer with the City. I'm here today to present a proposed amendment to the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board bylaw and seek Council approval of this bylaw.
Okay, I'm asked, can you speak as close as you can to the mic? Everybody's ears are tired.
Okay. Is it better? Is it better?
Yeah, right in front of it.
Okay, sorry. The proposed bylaw would remove council members from the SDAB and transition to a fully citizen-based board structure. I would like to outline the rationale for the proposed amendment, the legislative and legal context, and talk about the implementation approach. I would like to start by clarifying what the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board is and why it plays a unique role in planning and development process. The Subdivision and Development Appeal Board is a quasi-judicial body that hears appeals of development and subdivision decisions. It is established under the Municipal Government Act and must operate independently of council and administration when making its decisions. The board's role is to assess whether decisions made by the Development and Subdivision Authority align with the applicable planning documents and land use bylaw. This amendment does not change the function of the board or its responsibilities. It proposes a change in composition to ensure the board's operations remain procedurally fair and free from potential conflicts. Next, I'd like to speak to the issue of procedural fairness, which is a fundamental principle that guides the work of quasi-judicial bodies like the SDAB. Procedural fairness includes the right to an impartial hearing and decision-making process. Even if there is no actual bias or wrongdoing, it's the perception of fairness that often carries the greatest weight in the public eye and legal challenges. This perception is heightened in appeals involving contentious developments, rezoning, or strong community opposition. In such cases, decisions may be questioned as to whether they were based solely on planning merit or influenced by political considerations. Additionally, SDEB decisions are subject to judicial review. If there is an appearance that the board was not independent, it increases the likelihood that a decision could be challenged in court, not necessarily because the outcome was incorrect, but because the process may be viewed as compromised. By removing council members from the SDEB, the city can take a proactive step towards strengthening public confidence in the impartiality of the process. It also reduces the risk of having decisions overturned or sent back to rehearing due to allegations of bias, which can be both time-consuming and costly. It's also extremely important to consider how council's role differs from that one of the SDEB. Council is tasked with developing the overall policy framework that guides land use and development in the city. This includes the adoption of statutory plans, such as the Municipal Development Plan, area structure plans, as well as zoning regulations and the land use bylaw. These documents reflect the strategic priorities, planning goals, and long-term vision established by Council on behalf of the community. The SDEB, on the other hand, does not set the policy, it applies it. Its function to hear appeals from individuals or developers who disagree with decisions made by Development and Subdivision Authority and to determine whether those decisions are consistent with the planning documents that Council has approved. When council members sit on the SDEB, it blurs the line between policymaker and adjudicator. In some cases, the board may be asked to review decisions that were made in accordance with or as a direct result of policies that council itself created. In these situations, having council members involved in the appeal process could be seen as evaluating their own policy outcomes, which undermines the objectivity of the process. Removing council members from the SDEB reinforces the proper separation between legislative and quasi-judicial roles. It ensures that council's focus remains on the strategic direction of the community and that appeals are reviewed by an impartial body with no vested interest in the outcome. I would like to address the legal context that informs this proposed amendment and how it aligns with emerging best practices across the province. Although there is currently no legal requirement to exclude elected officials from the SDEB, this change is strongly recommended based on both legal advice received by administration and evolving case law. In recent years, there have been a number of Alberta Court of Appeal decisions where SDEB rulings were challenged on the basis of procedural fairness, specifically the involvement of elected officials on the board. In these cases, the courts did not necessarily find that council members acted improperly, but their presence on the quasi-judicial tribunal reviewing development decisions created a perception of bias. That perception alone was enough to question the validity of the decisions, and in some instances led to appeals being overturned or returned for rehearing. These cases have shaped the legal landscape and clarified expectations for municipalities. The direction is clear. The more separate and impartial the appeal process is from the political process, the more defensible and transparent it becomes. Based on this precedent and the legal advice obtained by the city, administration recommends aligning with current best practices by transitioning to citizen-only SDEB model. This approach reflects what many municipalities across Alberta are already doing, including larger jurisdictions like Edmonton, Calgary, St. Albert, City of Beaumont, City of Red Deer, and others. By adopting this amendment, the city takes a proactive step to minimize legal risk, strengthen the integrity of the appeal process, and maintain public confidence in how development disputes are adjudicated. Finally, if Council adopts the proposed amendment, the changes would take effect with the next municipal term. The current board structure and appointments would remain in place until that time. This allows for a planned transition without impacting existing council committee responsibilities. Administration will incorporate this change into the committee appointment process following the next election. And to summarize, the proposed amendment supports procedural fairness and legal defensibility. It maintains the integrity of council's policy-making role while ensuring the SDAB remains independent and neutral. It aligns with the current best practices in the province and reflects evolving expectations around quasi-judicial decision-making. Based on the considerations outlined, administration recommends that council give 3 readings to bylaw C21-25, amending subdivision and development appeal board bylaw. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions first, Councillor Harris.
Ms. Kennedy, so can you refresh council's memory as to when an SDAB conducts a quasi-judicial hearing as a quasi-judicial body? It is required to hear evidence from concerned individuals or parties that are impacted by whatever the subject of appeal is, correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, that's correct.
Good. And then the SDAB, after having heard all the relevant information, is required to make a decision. When they make a decision, are they not required to issue reasons for the decision, ultimately indicating why they have chosen to do X, Y, or Z, whatever the case may be, either in support or in opposition to whatever the, I guess, the administrative recommendation might be from time to time. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct.
Good. Are you familiar with the concept of statutorily authorized bias? And if so, does it still exist in municipal legislation today?
Through your worship, not quite familiar with this term. So if you could elaborate on this, about this a bit.
The Municipal Government Act effectively does allow elected officials to be appointed to an SDAB. And so therefore, it ultimately does indicate, and it has in the past, indicated that an individual, an elected official, ultimately is able to sit as a member and is then required to do things that would ultimately be typically the case in a judicial hearing, in a quasi-judicial hearing. And so in this concept, I guess what I'm saying is that the framers of the MGA have not removed that. So what we're doing, correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to suggest that it is a prudent measure to give the apprehension of unbiased decision-making, because I guess I fundamentally impose this. I've got a tremendous amount of experience being a secretary to a quasi-judicial body for many years, and I've sat through many of these types of hearings. So I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. And I don't necessarily support it, but I'm trying to understand. So you don't understand what the concept, or you're not aware of the statutorily authorized bias in municipal legislation in Alberta today?
Through your worship to Councillor Harris, you are correct in the fact that, yes, according to legislation, there is no such prohibition as elected official to sit on SDAB. What we are trying to do here, we're trying to be proactive and follow the best current practices and the evolving case law, as there had been cases where the decisions were overturned by SDAB. The SDAB decisions had been overturned and sent back to rehearing because of elected officials being present, because of the perceived bias. So what courts decided that the intent, the perception matters as much as the intent. So as long as there is a reasonable apprehension of bias, we are running into a risk of being challenged in court.
Okay. And I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to understand where you're coming from to ultimately make a decision on this thing. So thank you.
Okay, I'm next in the speaking order. So I guess the question that I have, when you talk about these other municipalities are switching to this, such as Edmonton, under their development and subdivision authority, if I'm correct, they actually have council members that sit on that authority. Are you able to confirm that?
To your worship, I'm not quite, I can't confirm that. I'm sure you're right because you've probably done your research. What I can say that I do know a lot of municipalities do have municipal planning commissions as a separate body, and that is the a subdivision development authority delegated by council. I do know that Municipal Development Act has specific provisions there where it sets the prohibitions of members of those boards and committees to be represented to represent in the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. So to answer the question, I'm not quite sure how the City of Edmonton does represent that.
Okay, and I asked that question because when I started on council in 2007, members of council actually sat on the Subdivision and Development Authority and got to take a look at what was being presented. And if they had any concerns, they could voice them then. So I guess I'm wondering how many steps are we taking to remove council from any of this thought process? If it's removed from there and then it's removed from the SDAB, I mean, all council has done is approve the MDP, ASP, land use bylaw, and then it goes off to administration who's making the final decisions without any council input. So I guess I'm just wondering how many degrees of separation are we asking for? Or I guess the question would be, do we think then we need to come back to the old days and put council on the Subdivision and Development Authority to be able to have a look at what's coming forward? Now, maybe that question's for Mr. Fleming.
Well, I'll try to answer just a little bit of, and then Mr. Fleming can add to this if he wishes. What I'm saying here, we are, in this particular case, what we are trying to do, we just want to take a proactive step to eliminate any legal challenge possibly arising from a decision making. Just because council sets the policy and based on the strategic vision and represents the community as a whole, and SDAB makes individual decisions case-by-case basis. So, and in a lot of ways, those decisions, the development decisions that are being appealed are based on the policy created and established by council. That's where this conflict arises, and that's what we are trying to prevent in the future, if that makes any sense.
Okay, and I guess just my last question. So do we not believe that there's bias with anybody who sits on this committee?
It's a great question, Your Worship, and the answer to that would be that absolutely you're correct. However, being an elected official, you are in a way higher standard of scrutiny and in terms and visibility and power and influence that you have. So the process of, the tests that courts had established for that would be harder to pass if you are, as an elected official, in your capacity, for example, a while back had mentioned something publicly against a certain development, and then the few months or years even later, this matter is in front of SDAB, and you have to make an adjudicative decision that would raise a concern, just because of your visibility and the influence that you have over members of public.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. I have no problem with this proposed motion or series of motions. Bias is a sneaky devil. It appears everywhere. There's no question. I think the question here, though, is more importantly the perception of bias. If I'm sitting in front appealing to the SDAB panel for a ruling and I see three councillors sitting up there that have already said when they passed resolutions, either them specifically or our prior council, on what the rules should be, I'm going to wonder exactly how I'm going to get a fair hearing. In the real world, you can't act or serve as the judge in an extreme example, a murder trial, and also sit as the judge in the appeal court. That just doesn't happen.
We're still in question. There's no motions.
Yeah, thank you. I got carried away with myself. Anyway, I'll repeat myself when it comes time for comments. You bet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen, questions?
Yeah, the only question I have, and just reflecting on the last 4 years in SDAB proceedings, council involvement, council exclusion or preclusion from the proceedings, is that I would see value in having briefing notes given to council for SDAB conclusions. There have been times where council, would be well informed and should be well informed on SDAB decisions and the logic that the board, whoever it consists of, use to adjudicate an appeal. So, having said that, what's standard practice in the plan forward? Should council be removed from this board?
Through your worship to Councillor Nguyen, we do have a separate page on our website where we publish the agenda, what the appeal is for, and then we do publish a final decision with all the detailed explanation how that was reached.
Okay, so then it would be council's discretion or decision to any member of council to go look up that information, and then I guess what I'm asking is, can we have assurance that should it be pertinent to current events in Fort Saskatchewan that council is aware of this? And I think the task has been done relatively appropriately, and perhaps in closed session or open session where it's been needed.
Through your worship, that's correct. It's publicly available. This information is on the website. Like the decision, the agenda, and everything. You can, if you have any questions, you are also welcome to call. Every member of the public, including council, can access that information.
Right. So my concern is that there would be times where this maybe should be, or it would be advisable to have this as a, maybe not standing, but have it on an in-camera, as an in-camera agenda item. Is that the intent? Or has that been discussed?
Through your worship, I'm not sure I understand the question. You would like to have an in-camera item about the as potential or upcoming SDAB hearing?
I think what he's saying is he would like council to be informed without having to go look it up. An avenue to be informed without having to look it up. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that's exactly my question. I mean, because if there is development or significant development or decision that is not received well, I think council needs to know a high level summary of details of that hearing, which none of us would be privy to if we're not on that board.
And I would say they can get back
Your
to
worship,
us.
absolutely. Like if you would like to, if there is a contentious development and then following with the appeal, and we know that this issue is of a high importance and of a great interest to the public, we could absolutely incorporate such process as notifying council about the decision and the hearing itself.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blizzard. Questions?
Hi. The SDAB has been around for a long time. I've been on it for 6 years, but I know it's been there a lot longer than that. I've been on a number of hearings. Have there been any decisions in our SDAB in Fort Saskatchewan that have been appealed due to a councillor having enough influence or the suspect of the influence?
Through your worship, to Councillor Blizzard, not in our municipality, not to my knowledge. They have been in Alberta, but not in the city of Fort Saskatchewan.
Okay. And I guess tying in with that, there's 3 members for a hearing, 3 members of the SDAB. Only 1 is allowed to be a council member, so 2 would be just the public anyways. So I don't see the threat in that councillor. 2 people can overrule what that councillor feels anyways. So the siding is always on the public side no matter what. So I still don't see the concern.
Through your worship to Councillor Blizzard, you are correct. Usually we do hold a hearing with 3 panel members. We can have more if needed. It just, the practice shows that's the best and the optimal number. You are again correct. As per the MGA, only 1 member of council is allowed to be at the on the panel. I mean, again, we are suggesting that as a proactive step. It's absolutely not prohibited by any legislation at this point, so it is up to council. We, as administration, recommend to minimize the risk of legal challenges, but it's totally your decision whether or not you would like to proceed with this change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Batoye.
Thank you for your presentation. No, you've answered a lot of my questions already. So there's 3 that sit on an appeal or a hearing, and so depending on what the situation or the issue is, does council always have to sit on a hearing? Does it has to be always be a council member on that hearing, or can they be excluded?
Through your worship, no, a council member does not have to sit. We can have up to 1 council member on the panel, but there's no such requirement as a mandatory council representation on the board.
Okay, perfect. My second question is, so how many hearings have you had this year?
Through your worship, 1.
1. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm next in the speaking order. So last question that I have. If this were to get approved today, then I'm going to ask administration, should council be putting a motion on to put council members back on the Development and Subdivision Authority? And I ask that question because I think we're starting to get too many degrees of separation from the big picture to a decision. Janelle, do you want to?
For sure. Through your worship. So the subdivision authority is through the MGA given to council, and then council has chosen to delegate it to the city manager, who has chosen to delegate it to the director of development. Ultimately, it is up to council where you want that authority to lie. If the preference of council is to have it with yourselves, that absolutely can be facilitated. The thought process when the change was made was that by the time you've made a decision about the municipal development plan, area structure plan, neighborhood structure plan, and then the zoning, the vision for the neighborhood has been set, and any changes to the lot line are not going to have an overall impact on the vision for that neighborhood. The other thought was that an applicant has been given those rights by law through the zoning, so the ability to make a decision is limited by the time it gets to the subdivision authority. So it was a change that, sorry, I'll finish my rant here and then turn it back to you. It was a change that was made in an effort to streamline applications. We did find that by switching the authority to administration, we were able to process applications faster. That is just something to be aware of if you were looking to return the authority to council.
Okay, so that comes to the second question then. So if we have been part of the process all the way down to the neighborhood 1, what would we typically see as an appeal?
To your worship, subdivision appeals are rare. Typically, development appeals is what comes before the SDAB. So in my recollection, I'm aware of 2 subdivision appeals that have been brought to the board in my 14 years with the city. They don't happen very often. It may be, I'm trying to think of an example. There was an instance where there was an application for a variance and we denied that. It was brought to the board. Again, they don't happen very often.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate knowing that council can and may make that change should they want to. Councillor Kelly? We're still in questions.
Mayor Katcher, I'm prepared to make the motions. I don't know why we don't get them on the floor.
Because that's our policy.
understand that, but we've been around once. Let's move on.
Okay, but I've still got Councillor Harris who would in for questions, so I'll come back to you to make the motion in a moment. Councillor Harris on questions.
Ms. Duguid-Smith, so when a decision is appealed under current legislation, it can only be appealed on the basis of an error in law or jurisdiction. Is that correct? It used to be that. Has that changed?
Through your worship, you are limited as to why you can put forward an appeal.
Right. So, an SDAB, let's say somebody makes an application to leave as cited, and the board hears that and decides that they don't want to leave as cited. They have to issue a decision in writing that states why they're making that decision. So there have to be reasons, right?
That is correct.
Okay. And so the appellant, if they're aggrieved of that decision, can then file an appeal with the Alberta Court of Appeal, or whatever the body is, King's Court, whatever it is, alleging that there was a lack of jurisdiction or there was an error in law.
Through your worship, that is correct.
Right. So how would bias fall into that? Because if our current legislation allows us to have elected officials on, somebody would have to argue that there were insufficient reasons for that decision, or they're the wrong decisions. They would have to prove to the court that there was some basis for doing that. Because I think it's important to understand that whole process. Because I guess I'm trying to understand. I understand why administration is bringing this forward, to be squeaky clean and to take away any potential challenge, but I'm trying to understand on the basis of, is it really necessary? So, and having had years of experience with this, that's why I'm asking those questions. So thank you for answering that.
Go ahead.
Through your worship, to Councillor Harris, just wanted to hopefully clarify that if we were to bring in if we were to bring a couple of examples, we are only talking about perception of bias because of elected officials sitting on the SDB, not a public member. Again, just number one, elected officials are in the public eye all the time. Your statements, whether or not made on social media in the public setting, such as council meeting, are visible and can create a perception of bias months and years later. So things that would seem low risk and statements that would, comments that would seem low risk at the time might do a bit more damage later during the adjudication process. And again, if I were to bring a couple of examples that Court of Appeal overruled the decisions of the SDB board because of council members publicly stated their opposition to a certain development, and then months and years later sat on the SDB board, there was a perception of bias, that the reasonable person having facts in front of them, knowing that a council member in their capacity had expressed strong opposition to a certain development and now sat on the board and reviewed that same matter, court confirmed that that was a perception of bias for a reasonable person to believe, if that makes any sense.
Okay. You're good, thank you. I've just got one last question. So, in the position of a council, if the SDAB makes a decision, there's no council member on it, and then council hears the decision and says, well, that's not right. Can the city actually appeal the decision of the SDAB?
To your worship, no.
No. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll go to you, Councillor Kelly, for a motion. Oh, just a second there.
Apologies.
Sorry, to your worship, the city as a separate entity from the SDAB can actually appeal the decisions of the SDAB, because there are cases in which the SDAB chooses to vary a decision or do something other than the development authority's recommendation, so it makes the decision separate from the city, and it can be appealed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Kelly, on the motion.
Yes, you bet. Thank you. I move the council give first reading to bylaws C 2125, amending subdivision and development appeal bylaw.
Okay, thank you, and you may speak to it.
Yeah, you bet. I won't repeat myself too much, but the key here, and you adequately stated it, it's the perception of bias. We want to give the impression that when somebody appeals, that they're getting a fair and responsible hearing. I have sat for multiple hearings on the SDAB. I always felt I was unbiased, but that doesn't matter because I don't know what the person that was actually, the appellant was actually thinking as I sat there. Furthermore, the people that aren't counselors that also are on the SDAB are very capable individuals. I have met several of them and worked with several of them over the years, and have not once ever had concerns or misgivings or any doubts whatsoever as to their ability and their intent and their diligence to the job at hand. So I'm not convinced that council itself adds any value. And I do see that council in itself could detract through the perception of bias, and I do believe that we want to avoid that. So I think the motion is, again, fairly standard, and I would encourage council to move on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion and debate is now open. Councillor Blizzard.
I know we've had this kind of loosely discussed in the past whether this is something we should do, and I didn't support it right away. I think council wears many hats when we sit on council. This is just another one, and when we get on our various boards and committees and everything we're on, we're actually trained to say we're wearing that hat today, not council as a whole hat. So I think, you know, this is just another hat that we wear, and when we wear it, we try to be unbiased and look at the fairness of either side. I've sat on many hearings, and actually, as I was going through this, I thought, wait a minute, I actually sat on the SDAB as a public member too, and I remember thinking that my council side helped me be a public member. It actually supported that, being in that position. All SDAB members, including council, get training, so it's not like you're put on this board and you can do whatever you want. We do get training for it, including council. There's 7 members on, what do you call it, members of this possible board that can be called for a hearing. So if there's any thing that might have, and this could go even for a public member, something where you might be biased, you can opt out. You can maybe even the city side, if it's some strong something that the city has made a decision on, it can be all 3 members and more if needed, can be non-council members, so that's always an option. And one of the things that was in this presentation was that the boards operate independently of council. I'm on many boards that operate independently of council, library board, CRASC. So I think that's just a common thing. If we were to remove council members from every board that operates independently, we wouldn't be on too many boards. And one thing that was mentioned here by Councillor Kelly was, you know, we have capable members. Yes, we do. I'm not questioning their capabilities. We do have good members on the SDAB that are public members. I just strongly feel that there's benefit to having a couple of council members available for possibly a hearing, because sometimes that can be a benefit too. So I won't be supporting this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Betoyer.
Thank you. I will definitely be supporting this. I think that this is an opportunity for us to show that we are proactive and we're not reactive. And we've heard about the case law example that's been given. We don't want to wait until it happens to us before we start to make sure that everything is done appropriately. So I absolutely support the motion. I think we're being proactive. I think that the perception of it is real. Like we might say that, yeah, the law allows us, the bylaws allow us to do it, but I really think it's just taking it out completely. That perception bias, you just can't measure it. It's in the heads of people. How do you measure that? We know it's a real issue. So I think that for that reason, I think council has a lot of boards and committees anyway. So I think one less one might be great. And also we heard that one appeal in 8 months, just one appeal. So really, I think that council's time can be used in other areas. I see the fairness and impartiality that's been talked about severally by our presenter today. And for that reason, I'll support the motion. And thank you for bringing it forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris on discussion and debate.
I speak from a position of deep experience in this because I was secretary of a development appeal board. We didn't deal with subdivision in the day. That evolved over time. And so I'm fully understanding of the concept of what it takes to render decisions, to receive information, to ask questions, and to render a decision within the guidelines. So I understand that. I don't think this is necessary. I think ultimately if a situation were to happen where a member of council was deemed to have an apprehension of bias in that regard, ultimately it would be dealt with in a court of law. And the appellant or the person wishing to appeal that decision of the SDAB would ultimately have to bring forth reasonable information to suggest that there was an error, a miscarriage of justice, if you will. And so I don't see this as necessary. I think having counselors sit on the roster, they can then make their decision as to whether or not they have a bias and shouldn't sit there. And with a number of public members, and assuming that we continue to do our work as a council in interviewing and ensuring the people that we appoint to our boards and committees as public members are relevant and appropriately able to be unbiased in that regard. And again, they may have individual circumstances where they don't want to sit on something too. So, and that's why we have a number of people to draw from. So I don't see the need. I understand the caution that administration is bringing forward, and I would expect that you do that. But we get to sit up here and make a decision as to whether or not it really is prudent and necessary. And I don't think it's necessary. In the experience I had, we were dealing with 15 appeals every 2 weeks, not one every 8 months. And so that was a whole different kettle of fish. And in that context, looking back, I don't ever recall that there was a problem with an elected official making a decision. They sat at the table and they had to come up with reasons for why that decision was being made. And I think we only went to Alberta Court of Appeal twice, and it was on an error in law, not in jurisdiction. So I won't support this at this point. But I understand why administration, and I would expect that administration would bring these things forward from a legislative standpoint from time to time. So I applaud that in that regard, but I can't support it notwithstanding.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you. My recent experience, and along with Councillor Blizzard, we completed the SDAB training, and I found it to be extremely valuable as a member of council. I do believe I made the request to administration to have some type of SDAB orientation for council members to gain an understanding of what the role is of the Development Authority, and for perhaps gaining insight into the workings, inner workings of our planning and development department, all the way up to the quasi-judicial board on which currently 2 councillors sit. I understand the value of the proposal before us today. And just weighing the pros and cons, which have been delineated quite accurately here, I'm actually going to oppose this motion as it stands, as I do believe having council active on this board has more merit than removing 2 council members and I understand that this can be seen as kind of getting into the weeds from the hats that elected officials wear. I do believe there are several layers of risk assessment and risk mitigation that are conducted to protect the sanctity and remove as much bias as possible from this board, and to our presenters' statement that there is certainly going to be innate bias in any single individual, albeit or from the public or in an elected official position. I believe there's more value to have a council member sit on this board than not.
Okay, thank you. I'm next in the speaking order, but I still need some clarification. So I understand. So someone wants to do something either different on their property, or they submit a development permit, and the subdivision development authority takes a look at it and says yes or no, and depends on their decision. If the person wants to appeal it, then they can appeal it. But when it comes to the land matters, so as you said, we have all of these different plans all the way down to the neighborhood one. That's where I probably have my biggest concern. So what instances would we be looking at, I'm going to say through a developer, that may come forward and say, well, we're down to this level, but now I want to change something, and the development authority says no, and then they appeal it. Now, council, that's outside of the scope of all of the policies that we have approved. So give me an instance like that. That's where I'm really struggling with. Like, I understand somebody wants to put a shed on their property and the neighbors appeal it. Okay, I understand that. I'm probably not as interested in that as I am in the actual land use matters. So Janelle, can you put some color on that?
Your Worship, I'm trying to think of past large developments and instances where it ended up at the SDAB, and I'm coming up short. Sometimes an applicant will want to appeal a condition that's been applied to their permit. So if a security was applied for landscaping or general maintenance of the site, the applicant may want to bring that to the SDAB. Typically, large-scale developers do a pretty good job of working with the development authority to interpret the zoning and make sure that we get to a spot that we both agree upon.
So you're not saying they can actually appeal something that is outside of what council has approved on zoning? So you're saying it's more on technical matters as far as their development agreement?
Through your Worship, yeah, more so in relation to their development permits. So they may, if the development authority refused an application because we didn't think it aligned with the zoning, the SDAB would be the avenue to say we disagree on the interpretation of this clause. It doesn't happen very often, but that is the avenue they could use. The SDAB also is available to folks who feel they're impacted by the development. So if they disagreed with the decision of the development authority, they could go to the SDAB and say that the decision was made in error. The SDAB is also there if an applicant disagrees with a condition that's imposed through a development permit. So if they think the development authority was too harsh, the SDAB is the avenue to challenge that decision.
Okay, so then I guess my next question comes to, it's provided for in the MGA, and I guess the question is, if council has approved the everything up to the neighborhood, the new neighborhood structure plan that we have, and then now we have that gap between there and when somebody decides, goes to the subdivision and authority, I guess I'm just struggling. If council doesn't have any input at all, and I understand not having bias and stuff like that, but if we haven't had any of that questioning or even any input through the development authority, then really how could there be a bias? Because council would have approved the MDP, ASP, LUB, and NSA, and then nothing. So we're saying that's basically where the line is drawn. So if they come in, I guess I'm just really struggling with this.
That's fair, Your Worship. And just for clarification, after the neighborhood structure plan, there's the land use bylaw amendment, the zoning approval. So that would be council's direct direction to the development authority.
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure where to go on this one. Okay, Councillor Kelly, you're last in the queue, so I guess you can have your comments and close.
I'm prepared to close, but I do have a question to council in general. If anybody, any individual councillor chooses to respond, I would appreciate it. I'm struggling to understand the benefit of having a councillor on this board, one of three. So help me understand the benefit to the citizenry of the community. What's the benefit? And Councillor Harris, goodbye. Yeah, I don't care.
Okay, I've got Councillor Nguyen. I'll maybe pause for a moment. Councillor Nguyen, did you want to speak to that?
I can. So, and I thank you for that question, Councillor Kelly, and it no means am I presenting council here, but in my personal opinion, I believe the council has a real-time knowledge of development permit applications as with intricate knowledge given by the city's planning and development department, having been part of, for example, 2 new area structure plans down to neighborhood structure plans, and this has all happened within the last 8 months. So I believe if there, I'll try to word this correctly, I believe if there is value, being forward-looking, of having a councillor sit on the SDAB, it is that they are part of the process that is currently underway with knowledge of underpinnings and direct relationships and interactions with those who are presenting proposals from anywhere from MDP, ASP, NSP down to the redistricting or rezoning, as it's been referred to this morning. So that's what I think a councillor brings to this board. And so from that perspective, I'd be pleased to sit on the board as a councillor myself.
Thank you. I see Councillor Blizzard. Did you want to respond to that as well? I would like it if you did.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Blizzard.
It is a tough question because, you know, with the bias, some of the things that might be said here now might seem like there is bias, but I think a councillor member, instead of just picking 3 people, I honestly feel there should be a councillor in every hearing because I think we have current comfort and knowledge of what's going on at the moment. It's like getting CPR training and then never using it. The person that is the first responder that has probably used it over and over is going to be better at it than the same course taken by me that has never touched it. And I feel like with this SDAB, we are used to and are comfortable with land use bylaws and some of the different levels, neighborhood plans. The hearings that I've been on, I know, and maybe it's just because I voice my opinion, but I feel like sometimes they look at, you know, what is the current standard, because you can get lost in some of the hearings with it. So I feel that council gives a lot of knowledge into these board hearings that help the others also make decisions and not influence them, but maybe sometimes there's been questions asked me, what about this, what about that? And I think we help a lot.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments from both of you. You did hint, though, at the beginning of your comments, Councillor Blizzard, that it's difficult to answer the question because the bias will show itself, and I believe it did. Not that your comments are ill-intentioned.
Sounds like we might, but I don't think so.
But that's the point. The fact that it sounds like is the perception of. Prior knowledge of, prior communications with or contacts with or are all bias. The board consults the legislation, listens to the evidence, and discusses the hearing and the legislation and reaches what is hopefully seen as an unbiased conclusion. And I sat on it. I wanted to think that I was valuable on the board when I sat there as well. I'm not at all convinced I was, because the two people sitting with me were also very, very capable. So I failed to understand the contribution of having a counselor as opposed to any capable individual that's prepared to take the time and expend the energy to become knowledgeable in the subject matter. So this is all about perception and not about conduct, not about the conduct of the prior board hearings, not about the conduct of future board hearings. It is about the public perception of bias, and it's for that reason that these motions are in front of you, and it is for those reasons that I will support the motions. I'm ready to call the question, Mark Catcher.
Okay, thank you. That is closed. Please cast your vote. So the motion is defeated, so it will stop at that. All right, thank you. Are there any notice of motions? Not seeing any. Are there any points of interest? Not seeing any. Councillor inquiries of administration? None. I will take a motion to go in camera as per the items presented. Councillor Noyan.
I will move that council enter closed session for matters under ATIP.
All right, thank you. Please cast your vote. All right, thank you. So we will go to in camera. Thank you.